So, hello everyone, here and there. You probably know that we're having some technical difficulties, and Jane is hanging in there. And yesterday I was saying there's the dukkha lakkhana and then dukkha satya. Dukkha lakkhana is the characteristic of unsatisfactoriness, and dukkha satya is around the Four Noble Truths, satya being truth. So the characteristic of all technology is that it's unsatisfactory. Correct? Correct. And that's its nature. But there are causes and conditions we can implement to try to make it better, which we are now doing. But when do you make dukkha lakkhana into suffering? And that's all of life is like that. And so one of the things that we like on a retreat is tranquility. So this is not a tranquil situation, especially for Jane and Nissanka. And it's talking back. It doesn't like this. So I told you it was unsatisfactory. But is it suffering, right? Does it have to be suffering? So we're getting some echo feedback.
Yeah, someone became unmuted.
Aha, guilty. Now then you get those kinds of things going on too, and then you get trolled for having your mute off. So one thing to kind of consider the difference between tranquility, which is contingent on conditions, and that sometimes you can line your ducks up, as it were, and everything's just kind of nice. But that's very fragile. That's very, very fragile. And I think all of us have seen that when we get too precious about our tranquility, we can really be awful. Someone has an asthmatic attack, you say, go retreat somewhere else. You're disturbing my tranquility. It can be quite problematic. So the peace that the Buddha was talking about wasn't a piece of conditions that you get it all right. It was something that was behind all conditions, beyond all conditions. That's why we say it's transcendent. And one of the ways that you think about that is when things become unsatisfactory. They're always unsatisfactory. You remember that's how it's supposed to be. When your body starts to get sick, well, that's what it's supposed to be, which isn't fatalism. It's just the nature of conditioned phenomena. And then you do your utmost to make it as good as it can be. So this is a chair. This is called a chair, and this is called a human sciatica problem. So I have a sciatica problem. Is one of the reasons I started doing yoga nidra, actually. And so now it's acting up, and so I'll have to switch from A to B. But I'll try to teach from A, and then when I sit, I'll still be moving back and forth. But that's 75-year-old body. It's supposed to have something going on, huh? I mean, and yet when things go wrong, we say, well, it shouldn't be this way. But how else could it be? And yet we can do things to make it right. So it's not fatalism, but it is peace. It is peace. So on a retreat, we're trying to share this retreat with all of you who are online. And Jane's doing her utmost and Nissanka and Bob and others, me. So there's lots of effort. So we're trying to share the space. And that seems nicer than just saying, well, we're only going to be 18 of us. And you guys on the internet, well, you can watch Monty Python. Maybe more fun. Which would be very selfish. Okay? So do contemplate that difference between a kind of a controlled, environmental, contingent tranquility, both as like in your meditation too. You can do that. You can suppress things and just keep it all really, really controlled. Some people can. So there's a fellow in Montreal who I met long, long ago, and he was a musician, I think. And he was very good at Mr. Goenka's method. And he was kind of down to micrometer size sensations. And he could do that for hours. But he said he had no wisdom. So he could tranquilize the mind by focusing and keeping everything else at bay. But you could see he was still kind of confused about insight. And so that's obviously not it. But some sense of composure is important. If you don't put any effort into composing, what's Samadhi about? And so Samadhi is about that enough composure and collectedness that you can witness and inquire about the way things are, and even witness your own the fires of delusion that come up into your mind. So if I have like say Jane and Nisanka trying to practice because they're looking at the computer now and trying to practice with that, that's ordinary life, isn't it? That you've got the stress of technology, and then okay, how can I do this as a Dharma practice? So certainly I find like teaching in person is so much easier to see human beings, even though you've got masks on. You kind of see when your eyes kind of squinch up. I know it's a good sign. The reading eyes is cheating. But it's just lovely, to be with people and to relate. And then it's very different. Like when I teach a Zoom retreat, it's quite tiring. But that's all right too. Why not do that too? And just, okay, that's what that Zoom technology is about. I'll give that a go. I asked Ajahn Sucitto, I said, how many days can you do a Zoom retreat? He says, 4 and I'm finished. But that's all right. That's the format. And okay, so there's some stress. And okay, you work with that. So rather than seek perfection, or rather than do nothing, right? You do the best you can, but always you take responsibility for the dukkha in terms of the Four Noble Truths that come up in your mind. And the way to do that is to take refuge in awareness rather than in conditions. So I'm suggesting that this, I know it works for me, this is awareness. Let's say pain. Look at pain, because pain is a common thing we have as humans and on retreats and so on. So I have this sciatic pain. You have sciatic pain too? Welcome. I won't put no hands up, probably. Half of us are going to have that. So that's part of like sitting in this posture for me. And so like the thing about pain and sitting meditation is that if you're sitting for 45 minutes, say I set the clock for 45 minutes, then if you're starting to get discomfort or pain, you can move, you can stand up. So it isn't a kind of rigid thou shalt not move kind of practice. But within that, you generally, you try to hold the body still, that's profitable. Try not to fidget because that's helpful. And then as pain or discomfort arises, you start to get anticipation, don't you? Anticipation of the end of the sitting. And as you start to get anticipation coming up, that's the desire not to have the pain. So with desire as condition, you get the bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha. I don't want this. I want the sitting to end. That's not rocket science. And then that creates a sense of personhood, because you start to think, what time is it? And if, like I joke, I say, if there's still a half hour left in a 45-minute sitting, and you look It's going to be a long it's going to be a long time. So then you force yourself not to look, but then that doesn't work either. You're going to force you. So making conscious, like the feeling of pain, and then the feeling of how long will I last, and the narrative that comes up from that, the self-narrative, using this idea is awareness separate from the pain. Takes you to, can take you to a place where the pain is still the pain, but you're no longer enmeshed in it as a self trying to get out of the pain. That's how it works for me. But having said that, now I've got a chair. So I'm not being stupid. Well, sometimes I am, but in this case, I said, if you're going to last 7 days, it's time you did something. So I do something. So it's not like I must endure pain and I must, no. Again, it's like Nancy said, it's the joy of investigation. It's like inquiry around pain. Okay, how bad is this? Should I move? Should I get out of the sitting? That's the most important thing, your physical health. Don't damage it. But okay, what is it? What is it now? Pain is a condition. It is dukkha vedana. It has the sign of unpleasantness. Where's the suffering? Where's the suffering? Where's the anticipation? How does that feel? And where's the language of anticipation? And as you start to notice that, you just say, like, is awareness separate from pain? You have to be very still to notice that. And I think we don't want to do that because we think like allowing the pain to be there, it's going to be more painful. So we're not focused, like sometimes I know I just focus on the pain. Well, that doesn't work either because it just feels more painful. And so, but for me, awareness is very spacious. It includes everything. So when I do that, and so I was doing that this morning. So is awareness separate from the pain? There's pain, and then there's the space. And you start to see, yeah, it's still the same pain. I have to be careful, but it's actually peaceful. It's actually, it's okay. And yet it's not okay because I know I have to take care of my body, but it's okay in a sense that I can be with this. And if I give my self-perception to move. I know, like with the one tradition, there's this idea of maximum determination. Do you remember those? Anyway, so the idea is that you do 1 or 2 sittings a day, was it? I think, and then you determine not to move. Maximum determination. So I think many of us have done that one. I saw a guy walk crippled once and really messed himself up. So, and I, as a young monk, I was doing that too. I was just like forcing myself. No, I'm not going to move. But that's not mindfulness. That's just machismo, isn't it? Some kind of macho monk. Seems an oxymoron. But that's what I was doing, wasn't it? I was just, you can see the Zen monks can do it, I can do it. But then if I'd fidget all the time, well, that didn't work either. I was watching the Thai monks because they're very strong, and I try to be like them, but they sat on the ground their whole life. I was just 6 months into it. So then I was trying to compare myself to others. And wait, what's going on? What does pain feel like? What's mindfulness around pain? When can I move? When can I not move? So stillness of body is very important. It's very helpful. That's why Yoga Nidra can be very interesting that way. But then I say, well, what makes me peaceful? Well, sometimes it makes me just shift your posture a little bit. You'll be fine. Sometimes it's more peaceful to go to a chair. Sometimes more peaceful, just don't move. Just don't move. Watch that. But that comes from experience, right? And wisdom, hopefully. So pain is teacher, and especially that the whole sense of self being born in time with anticipation. That's really interesting because the sense of self is time. I am someone who is going somewhere. So I'm someone who's sitting here now, and it's true. Conventionally, it's true. But when you let go self-thinking, there's this, which has no, it doesn't really have a sense of me going somewhere. But then with desire as condition, desire comes up, desire to get rid of the pain, which is biologically necessary, it's not wrong. But what arises also is, how much more? Should I move? Should I not move? And then that makes you restless. That is restlessness. So then you say, oh, okay, is awareness separate from pain? Then you're not divided. There isn't a me having this thing called pain. There is pain. There isn't a me having a pain. And that's one way of looking at anatta. The concepts around anatta are very difficult, but this is a way of kind of entering into that, because there is awareness, there is presence, right? You can't deny that. But all the self-making, I-making, ahankara, mimamkara that come up into consciousness, that thought processes, that what we call upadana, or attachment to a sense of a self. And then when you do that, is awareness separate? Then all you have is awareness, and the object's in awareness. So, if that's interesting, explore that and see what happens when you use that kind of format with awareness, as opposed to I must be aware. This is me again. So you're going right into the where the contraction is, I suppose, and observing it. Okay. Let's do some more meditation then. So, how are our techies again? Yeah, that's good. That's right. Okay. So in that vein of observing discomfort, you can always like stand up, or like if you're sleepy too, you can stand up, change your posture. Listen to sound. And let the sounds come into consciousness. So try an idea like receptive awareness. So we're emphasizing the awareness rather than the quality of sound. Receptive awareness, sound. Feel your hands. The tactile feelings of your hands, let them become conscious. Receptive awareness, so you're not looking for a feeling. Listen to sound. Receptive awareness. And the experience of sound is in awareness. So the depth perception, volume, quality, all of that, all those characteristics are in awareness. So the idea here is to imagine awareness as space, a kind of perception of space. Feel your hands. Let them become Let the sensations become conscious. And this is in awareness. So the sensations of the hands are phenomena in awareness, changing objects. Sound, phenomena in awareness, changing objects. So you might say it's my body, my hands, and that the sound of the motor is over there. You could say that. But also this other perception that both are objects in awareness. And what does that do to the mind? Make conscious the breathing of the body. So welcome the sensations which are the breath. The breath is changing. So is awareness separate from breathing? Is it like two things, me, the breather, and the breath, sensations of breathing? But there's distinction. So breath is in awareness, changing in awareness. Bring your attention to the center of the chest. Welcome the in-breath at the center of the chest. Let go of the out-breath. On the in-breath, imagine someone for whom you feel affection. Name them and register that affection in the heart. On the out-breath, wish them well. So don't go into a narrative about people. Simply trigger a perception of affection and kindness, gratitude, whatever. Name the person, in-breath, center of the heart. So this is kind of like a giving rather than getting, not getting anything. You're just remembering someone. May you be well. And the same person, may you be well. So you can do that for a long time or just establish that attitude as a matter of course, just to remember that. And then be with the breath or whatever you find helpful to sustain awareness of the way things are. Nice chair. So we have a couple of hours left. One of the things you always left in this session, you always hear about in retreats is to be here now. Ram Dass's phrase. What was the T.S. Eliot poem? Man's curiosity, such as past and future, and clings to that dimension. But to apprehend the intersection of timeless with time is the occupation of a saint, no occupation either, but a life lived in love. English. Love. Selflessness and self-surrender, there's another word there. So the intersection of the timeless with time. Or Ram Dass's is easier, be here now. It's more user-friendly. But so what happens is when teacher makes that suggestion, then, okay, you start trying to control yourself now. So I'm going to walk from A to B. I'm not going to think about the future. And it doesn't work because it's not a matter of control. And yet, always planning, you can see, is a habit which preoccupies attention. Man's curiosity searches past and future. Women's too, probably, right? Everyone does it. So then that preoccupation with the past and future prevents either you're not accessible or you're not available to the unconditioned because you're caught in time. And the unconditioned is timeless. So what to do? Well, what we usually do is we try to force ourselves not to think about the past and future, but that's still a sense of self, which is actually past and future. That's what it is. If you look at how the sense of time is created, not chronological time, but psychological or whatever time, is a movement of thought. What am I going to do? What's going to happen? Why do I think so much? I shouldn't be thinking so much. So what to do? I suggest using the same reflection. So when you notice that the mind is planning, then rather than stop planning Viradhammo, because it seems to me you're buying into the same sense of self-model. Ask the question, is thought or planning, is awareness of planning separate from planning itself? So what that does for me, it heightens awareness. If I'm looking for an answer, then I think more, but that's not the point. So maybe like I start to think about the Katina or whatever we're going on in the monastery. Is awareness separate from thinking about? And the mind is silent. There's no answer. And that prevents you from like fighting with the thinking patterns. So you're accepting it, but then you're elevating that which is timeless. And then that means you're available. Man's curiosity, especially an intersection of the timeless with time, is an occupation of a saint. And that's what we're doing. And what is time? Well, it's self and our narratives. And what is timeless? That's Akalika Dhamma in Pali. Akalika Dhamma, what is that? Well, you can't find it as an idea because that's a construct. You can find it in the silent attention. So that's one way to do that. So be here now. Now, if you do that right now, if you just listen, right? And I ask you in the listening, is awareness separate from sound? Is there a listener? I don't know about you, I get silence. You could have, there's I'm listening. You could do that. And then, okay. So what is that? And that's the whole structure of Dvaita and Chan and that kind of who am I practices. But who am I sometimes, and I find this works better. Just letting this awareness separate from, works for me. Give it a go. But whatever the case, if one is going to be available to transcendence or whatever language you like to use for that, how can that be possible if I'm preoccupied with time and the conditions of time? How can I realize the unconditioned if I'm preoccupied with conditions? So Jean Klein uses that word, non-preoccupation. That's a big word. You see what it means. It's a very interesting way to put it. So you're not like getting rid of anything. No, just don't be preoccupied with conditions. So receptive awareness, intuition, these are the ideas that are always coming back to that. All right, so let's do a couple of hours or an hour and a half practice and then go back at 7. Yep. Okay.